Developing right now on Morning News Now, Mother Nature showing no mercy as fire and flood ravage pockets of the country. This morning, millions of people from Oklahoma to Wisconsin bracing for more flooding after a deadly weekend deluge. While out west, several fast-moving wildfires are threatening homes and lives as firefighters struggle to contain the flames. And across the map, relentless heat making its return. We are tracking it all as you start your work week. Also this morning, a renewed push for peace in Ukraine. President Trump set for face-to-face talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. The question now, will Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky take part?
I do hope that Zelensky can be part of the process. I'll leave that up to the White House. It's time to end this war honorably, but how we do it will be historical.
We'll bring you the latest as the war in Ukraine rages on. Plus, toxic tonic, doctors sounding the alarm on a popular herbal drink sold all over the country. And fallout over Instagram's newest feature. Now Meta facing pressure to roll back its location sharing map just days after rolling it out. A lot of conversation about that one this weekend.
Yeah, you know what? I'm just wondering, like, who said, you know what I want? I want my location shared with all my friends at all times, or non-friends for that matter.
Or there's like Find My Friends or something for that, but why on social? Anyway, all right, good morning. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Sam Brock in for Joe Fryer.
And we're happy you're here, Sam. We're going to start this hour with the extreme weather that is hitting the country. In western Colorado, let's start there. Hot and windy conditions are fueling a pair of wildfires that have already consumed more than 120,000 acres. Over the weekend, people in 2 counties, including more than 170 inmates at a prison, were evacuated as the fast-moving fires shifted towards several communities. This morning, firefighters say the conditions are too dangerous to engage the fires directly. For now, they are just trying to keep the fire from getting close to any homes and will re-engage when weather conditions improve.
And Savannah, that's just part of the picture here. In the Midwest over the weekend, strong storms causing flash flooding throughout the region. Wisconsin was the hardest hit of all those states, getting up to 11 inches of rain in less than 24 hours. People were trapped inside of their cars as they tried to get to higher ground, leading to several swiftwater rescues throughout the state. This morning, Wisconsinites trying to dry out their homes and salvage what possessions they can.
Just got to take one day at a time after it happens and slowly rebuild.
But that rebuilding may have to wait as meteorologists are forecasting more rain that could fall in the region today. NBC meteorologist Angie Lastman is standing by with what we can expect in today's forecast. But first, we're going to check in with NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa, who is in waterlogged Wisconsin with the very latest.
Hey guys, good morning. It was a harrowing weekend here in Wisconsin. More than 14 inches of rain falling in 24 hours, swelling rivers and streams like this across the region. This is the Fox River. You can see it coming up over the banks of that pedestrian walkway. And then if we move over here, you can see just how high it is, how fast it's flowing. This happened quickly. Water surged into neighborhoods. We have video of this. Neighborhoods submerging cars, people trapped in their cars. Milwaukee Fire reporting 65 water rescues and near drownings, basically starting Saturday night and then into the overnight hours. Also, the state fair, incredible images coming out of there. That had to shut down early Saturday night. People wading through flooded parking lots to get to their cars, finding a lot of them submerged. And then by the light of day, you could really see the damage. A lot of homes, people pumping water out of them, tossing destroyed furniture out onto their lawns. Jean Krajewski, she had the most striking damage. Part of her home's cinder block foundation was just ripped away by the floodwaters. You could see her flooded basement from the backyard. Here's part of our conversation.
I'm stunned. I'm really in shock because I knew that what I'd see would be bad, but it's not good at all, especially when they're telling you that the home is inhabitable.
And this isn't the only insane summer weather hitting across the country. Overnight, we saw flash flooding in Florida as well. Severe winds, also kind of a common through line. We saw that on Myrtle Beach in South Carolina. Beach umbrellas went flying. In Nebraska, severe winds tore the roof off of a prison there. Officials say, thankfully, no one was hurt. Also saw severe storms in Denver, delaying close to 1,000 flights, canceling more than 71 at that airport alone on Sunday. And then finally, of course, we're monitoring all the wildfires out west in multiple states. In Colorado, the skies were thick with smoke. Someone posting on social media, this feels like Armageddon. Back here in Wisconsin, again, we talked about this kind of hitting over the weekend. The rain really came in Saturday night and then just everything unleashed from there. Sadly, it's not over. We could see up to an inch more of rain in this obviously oversaturated area throughout the day today before things even start to dry out. Guys.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much. Well, let's hit you more now on the flood alerts. They are in place from Oklahoma to Wisconsin with your morning news now weather. We've got Angie Lastman in studio with that. Angie, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning to you. Unfortunately, another active morning across some of those same spots that were hard hit, as you heard Maggie say over the weekend. Here's what we've got right now. Some of these thunderstorms in parts of northern Michigan, mainly stretched across parts of the Upper Peninsula, but then we've got some action happening across the middle of the country, and that is where we still see those flood alerts up. We've got some flash flood warnings, but mostly we're talking flood watches that are going to last through the rest of the morning hours as we get another good dose of rain. There is a whole lot of lightning associated with that as well, so a heads up for folks that live just east of Wichita. And that's kind of the general vicinity that we're going to see the most active weather today. It's through the plains. We'll still see the potential for some additional rain across parts of the Midwest, and on top of that, some of those thunderstorms could leave us with some gusty winds, so 30, 40, up to 50-mile-per-hour winds possible in some of those thunderstorms. As we look ahead to tomorrow, still dealing with that flood threat because we've got those scattered rain that kind of just lingers across the Midwest, and we'll see some of that still across parts of the Southeast. So a bit of an unsettled couple of days across the East. We've got the flash flood risk for, and it's a slight risk, but for a couple of locations. So if you live Springfield to Lubbock, or if you live Charleston along the Carolina coast, or if you live along the Gulf Coast, including Panama City, you have a little bit of an elevated risk for us to see some flash flooding today as we pick up some additional rainfall. Doesn't look all that impressive, but as you just saw, we really got a whole lot of rain over the weekend. So it's not going to take much for us to see some of that additional flooding. On the heat front, man, the West is quite warm. We've got those heat alerts up for 28 million people. A couple of them stretched across parts of northern New England, a few across the South, but mainly it's the West Coast that really is talking about oppressive heat in some locations. We've got the triple digits or near triple digits extending from the Pacific Northwest all the way down to the Southwest. Phoenix tops out at 110 degrees today. And then on the eastern side of the country, we've got temperatures from the Midwest to the Northeast into the 90s. So those numbers a little warmer than what we dealt with throughout the weekend in those regions. So you'll notice that humidity up a little bit. Philadelphia ends up into the low 90s tomorrow. Tucson, Las Vegas, you're well above 100. 97 degrees in Portland. We know a lot of folks there don't have AC. That's going to be kind of a couple of days that we're going to have to watch for any issues with heat-related illnesses and stuff. August highs stick with us across the East as we get through late week. So notice Wednesday through Friday in Cincinnati, you're either at or near 90. Same goes for New York City. We're above 90 for Little Rock as we round out our work week. And on top of that, guys, we've still got some of these fires burning in Canada and out west. So that means air quality alerts are going to remain across parts of Colorado, Minnesota, and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And we've got some of those in effect for parts of the Northeast as well.
My gosh, those numbers, 111 in Vegas.
Yeah, it's oppressive for sure.
And almost triple digits in the Pacific Northwest.
I know.
Yeah.
Portland.
That's a good
crazy.
safety warning, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, thanks Angie.
Appreciate it. We are now 4 days away from a high-stakes meeting between President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin that seeks to end the nearly 3.5-year-long war in Ukraine. But the meeting itself is raising a slew of questions and concerns.
That's right. Few details have been released about the summit, but we do know it will take place on Friday in Alaska. It will mark Putin's first visit to the U.S. since 2015, when he attended the UN General Assembly here in New York.
NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor joining us now from Washington with the latest developments. Yamiche, good morning. So much to go through here. Walk us through what we do know about this summit, why Alaska was chosen as the location for the meeting, and what else is going on this morning.
Well, good morning. This is, of course, going to be a historic summit on Friday. President Trump has been pushing for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine even before he was elected to office. And he was elected to office on the promise that he could bring this conflict to an end. The big question, of course, that you ask, why Alaska? Alaska used to be Russian territory, and then it joined the United States in the late 1950s. So that could be a hint of why these two leaders are meeting there. That being said, the president had been pushing for a meeting with Vladimir Putin. He's kind of changed his tone. He had been very critical of Vladimir Putin in the last few months, saying that he was sort of had lost his mind and was endlessly killing people. Now he's saying that he's interested in peace. The president was specifically asked whether or not this was Russia's last chance to broker peace. Take a listen to what the president said.
I don't like using the term last chance. Look, it's, Look, this is two very, very smart people. They've been going at it and their predecessors also very smart. They've been going at it for 35 years. It's tough. Europe wants to see peace. The European leaders want to see peace. President Putin, I believe, wants to see peace, and Zelensky wants to see peace. I think my instinct really tells me that we have a shot at it, okay?
Now, what's interesting there, of course, that the president was not just talking about himself and the Russian president, but he was also talking about Europe and the president of Ukraine. Right now, Europe and Ukraine are not part of this summit. It's a big question of whether or not they might be added at some point. We have some sources, about 4 sources, telling NBC News that the White House is considering inviting Ukraine to the table, but right now that hasn't happened. The other thing to note when you talk about Alaska, this is going to be the first time in about a decade that the president of Russia is actually stepping foot on U.S. soil, guys.
Yamiche, the White House has said they're considering inviting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to this summit. A huge question here. That's according to a senior U.S. official, also 3 people briefed on these internal discussions. Over the weekend here, right, a big piece of whether or not Zelensky's at the table is when it comes to territory. Zelensky said he would not give up any territory to Russia, saying that his countrymen, they will never give their land to occupiers. President Trump has suggested that a deal could potentially include swapping land. Is the potential for Zelensky to be at the table an acknowledgement by the White House that that might be the only way forward as they see it?
Well, President Zelensky has been very clear that the only way forward is a peace deal that includes input from Ukraine. The big sticking point here is going to be, well, what does this peace deal actually look like? And is swapping territory something that could really happen in a way that would please both sides and bring this conflict to a permanent end? You have, of course, President Zelensky, who's saying that they don't want, and by the way, the Ukrainian people saying that they fought for so long, 3 years, that they don't want to give up any territory, really, to Russia, that, again, illegally invaded Ukraine now 2 times. But there's also this acknowledgement that Russia is sort of moving its red line, because at one point they wanted a full region, about 4 big parts of Ukraine. Now President Putin is saying maybe he just wants one part of that. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there, and very interesting to see how President Zelensky ends up being added, if at all, to these talks or later talks.
Yamiche, earlier you mentioned President Trump's campaign promise about bringing peace to the region. He's always talked about being able to broker and close deals. So while as a candidate last year, he said he would end Russia's invasion of Ukraine, quote, in a day. Now, obviously, that didn't happen. Is there an expectation of success here? And what would a successful summit with Vladimir Putin mean for the president's legacy?
In talking to sources, there's an expectation of progress here, not an expectation of success, in that success really for most minds, including the Europeans, Ukraine, maybe even President Putin, is an end to this war. So that's sort of not going to happen when you only have, at this point, President Putin and President Trump at the table. That being said, President Trump, as you said, promised that he could end this in one day. He's since said that this was a sort of more complicated conflict than he gave it credit for. But his legacy is going to be tied to this, whether or not he can actually broker peace between these 2 countries. If he can do it, it would be a huge legacy boosting achievement for him. But if he ends up failing, this is also going to be something that will be a sort of stain on his legacy. So it's going to be very critical to see how this week goes and the weeks that go forward, because the whole country, the whole world really is watching these talks and watching what happens next.
Yeah, a lot on the line, to say the least. Thank you, Yamiche.
Let's now bring in former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, John Herbst. Ambassador, good morning. Thank you so much for being with us, as always. So, I mean, given what little we know, the fact that there was sort of this short run-up to an event, that's the type of thing where usually, you know, everything is prepared, refined to the last detail. Do you think that a big breakthrough can come out of this summit? Are you hopeful for that?
The way things are set up right now, I have very low expectations. I think President Trump did a very good job from the time of the strike on Iran up until late Thursday or early Friday of last week, putting pressure on Russia by strengthening NATO, by agreeing to send advanced weapons to Ukraine, by setting a deadline for a ceasefire. The problem is that after that very good 2 months of putting leverage on the Kremlin, he agreed to Putin's, you might say, terms for the summit, meaning no Zelensky. Because the United States wanted Zelensky there from the beginning. Russia said no. The U.S. has gone along. Also, the conversation about what's needed for a ceasefire only focuses on the concessions Moscow is demanding from Ukraine. It doesn't talk about the things Ukraine needs. So both the substance and the process makes Putin look like he's in charge and not Trump. That's a bad look for the president of the United States, and it tells Putin he can get his way. No, I'm not saying Putin will get his way, because it would not work to Trump's advantage to reach a deal with Putin, which is unacceptable to Ukraine. But the U.S. needs to toughen up its position, and perhaps we're starting to see that.
Ambassador, it seems that a crucial piece of any conversation around coming to a deal would involve both parties. The idea that President Zelensky may or may not be in attendance and that Vladimir Putin doesn't want him there as a precondition. I mean, is this a peace talk that involves Ukraine? Is it being done to Ukraine? How could it possibly be successful without Zelensky having a seat at the table?
I think the logic of your question is right. Zelensky needs to be involved. I think the White House realizes this, and it realizes it's taken some lumps, perhaps justifiably, over the past several days for what it's done since, again, late Thursday, early Friday. That's why you have J.D. Vance in London talking to not just the Brits, but other Europeans, including the Ukrainians. And you hear Vance saying, well, maybe we're going to get Zelensky to there. I imagine what's happening is behind the scenes they're negotiating furiously with the Russians to get them to agree. But of course, Trump has a card he could play. He could tell Putin, forget coming to Alaska unless Zelensky's there.
Where does this war go from here if no deal is reached during Friday's meeting?
I'm sorry, could you please repeat the question? I had trouble hearing it.
Oh, absolutely. Where do you think this war goes from here if no deal is reached at this summit?
Well, if no deal is reached, the war continues. Trump, again, as part of putting leverage on the Kremlin, said 3 weeks ago that we will send advanced weapons to Ukraine, albeit paid for by Europeans. If we provide more military support to Ukraine, and if we actually put sanctions on Russia, punishing sanctions on Russia for continuing the war, I don't have any question that Putin will be unable to make any gains on the battlefield, and then he'll be forced to make a durable peace, which is exactly Trump's objective.
Ambassador John Erbst, always great to have you with us. We appreciate your expertise. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Back
Thank you.
at home, thank you, Ambassador. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker slamming both President Trump and Texas Governor Greg Abbott over the Lone Star State's push to redraw its congressional map. Illinois is one of the states that, of course, has welcomed the more than 50 Texas Democrats who fled their state in an attempt to foil the redistricting plan. Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker spoke to Pritzker on her show yesterday.
Hello there, Sam and Savannah. This week on Meet the Press, I spoke to Democratic Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois about partisan redistricting in his state amid growing tensions between Texas lawmakers and blue state leaders over Texas's redrawn map. Despite President Trump winning 44% of the statewide vote in 2024, Republicans hold only 3 of Illinois' 17 districts. These districts seem to be designed to maximize Democratic advantage. What do you say to those who argue that it's hypocritical for you to criticize Texas for partisanship when your state also drew maps to boost your party's standing?
Well, remember that what Texas is trying to do is, again, violate the Voting Rights Act. We didn't. We held public hearings, legislative hearings. People attended them. They spoke out. There was a map that was put out. There were actually changes made to the map. And a map was passed, and it was done at the end of the census, the decennial census. So that's how it's done in this country. You talked about how rare it is to do what he's doing. Yes, it is. What's even rarer is to do it at the behest of the President of the United States, who's clearly attempting to and says that he deserves to have 5 more seats. He's wrong. And he's attempting to change the game because, again, he passed this big, ugly bill. It's hyper unpopular in Texas, among people in Texas and across the country. And he knows he's going to lose the Congress in 2026. That's why he's going to his allies and hoping that they can save him. And we've all got to stand up against this. It's cheating. Donald Trump is a cheater. He cheats on his wives. He cheats at golf. And now he's trying to cheat the American people out of their votes.
You can see my full interview and a whole lot more at MeetThePress.com. You can also get more Meet the Press here on NBC News Now every weekday at 4 p.m.
Kristen, thank you so much. We're going to get more right now on the standoff in Texas with NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. Ryan, good morning. The federal government has threatened to get involved here with the FBI and arrest warrants. Governor Abbott has threatened infinite special sessions. Where do things stand right now in this impasse?
Well, it's really a high-stakes staring contest at this point, Sam, and it's not clear which side is going to back down first. You're right. Those Texas Democrats have not returned to the state. That's prevented the legislature from being able to establish a quorum so they can move this redistricting plan forward. But at the same time, they can't stay out of the state forever. And the Texas Governor, Greg Abbott, has promised that he'll just keep starting up new special sessions every 30 days in an effort to try and get them back to the state to move this process forward. There is some effort to try and get the federal government involved to force them to come back to the state, but they don't really have a lot of power to do so. Ultimately, at some point, someone's going to have to crack. The question right now is just when that could possibly happen.
Ryan, let's also turn our attention to some other news. This happening today. President Trump is supposed to hold this press event this morning. It's about what he has called ending the crime, the murder, and death in the Capitol. There's been some talk that he could even end up deploying the National Guard in Washington, D.C. What more can you tell us about all this?
Yeah, I mean, this is something that President Trump has been borderline obsessed with since he took office once again for a second term. He feels that there's a serious crime and blight problem in Washington, D.C., and he believes that the federal government should do something about it. Now, D.C. leaders have said that it's just not the case. There had been some issues with crime, but crime is actually on the way down in Washington and that they're working to make the situation better. It's not clear the form and fashion in which the federal government will get involved here. Keep in mind, guys, there is already a tremendous federal law enforcement presence in Washington, D.C. You have the D.C. Park Police. You have the Capitol Police. You have Secret Service. They have Department of Homeland Security Police. You have the FBI. All of them already have a presence in Washington. There is the likelihood that you'll just see more of these officers patrolling the streets and actually taking action, moving homeless out of public areas, things along those lines. There's no doubt that the National Guard is on the table and it is an option for President Trump. It's not clear when he plans to use it, if he does at all.
Yeah, the details clearly still murky there, Ryan. Lastly, on Friday, we saw that President Trump removed Billy Long as commissioner of the IRS. What do we know about the reasons behind that move?
It's curious. The White House is not really giving many specific answers about why they removed Long from this position, especially after he was only in the job for 2 weeks. There were certainly some questions about his resume. He was a member of Congress for quite a while, but his professional career was as an auctioneer. He really had no experience with taxes or anything having to do with the IRS. Long has been appointed, or is expected to be appointed, the next ambassador to Iceland. This is now another job that's going to have an acting title associated with it, with another cabinet secretary that already has a lot of work. Scott Bessent will take over that responsibility. He's currently the Treasury Secretary. This is something President Trump just keeps doing. These jobs that normally are huge responsibilities for an individual, he's just adding to the list of responsibilities that already are the responsibility of other important cabinet secretaries. So it's not clear how this whole process is going to work itself out. And keep in mind, the IRS commissioner is responsible for implementing this next round of tax cut extensions that the Congress just passed through. And of course, they have a lot to do with the implementation of these tariffs that President Trump has used kind of as the foundation of both his foreign policy and his economic policy. Guys.
All right. Ryan Nobles, thanks for your reporting here. Well, in Atlanta, there's fear and anger from some inside the CDC after Friday's targeted shooting that left 2 dead. A man who blamed the COVID-19 vaccine for making him depressed and suicidal opened fire near the agency's campus, killing a police officer. The gunman also died. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar has the details.
Current and former CDC employees and allies in Atlanta fired up, angry following Friday evening's shooting that left a responding police officer and the alleged gunman dead.
Secretary Kennedy likened CDC to a Nazi death camp. He has accused CDC workers of deliberately harming people. He has spread disinformation about the vaccine and told people that the vaccine causes harms that it does not cause.
Dr. Anna Yusuf was on a call held by the CDC director with members of the agency's Center for Immunizations and Respiratory Diseases Department to discuss the shooting. She says many of her colleagues blame the Trump administration's rhetoric, and specifically Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for the attack.
He needs to publicly denounce the vilification of federal workers and CDC specifically.
The health secretary has previously made comments like this unfounded claim about the COVID vaccine.
It's the deadliest vaccine ever made.
He posted on X on Saturday, "We're actively supporting CDC staff on the ground and across the agency. We stand with them." Authorities identified the alleged gunman as Patrick Joseph White. A neighbor of his who requested anonymity tells NBC News that he expressed anti-vaccine sentiments to her on multiple occasions and told her that he believed the COVID-19 vaccine made him sick. Abby Tai is one of the founding members of Fired But Fighting, a group made up of laid-off CDC workers. She says the shooting didn't surprise her.
Among us folks that work at CDC or have connections to CDC, something like this is always in the back of our mind.
The CDC director says at least 40 bullets hit 3 buildings on the campus. In an email to employees, CDC's chief operating officer says the shooting was a targeted attack related to COVID.
And our thanks to Priya Sridhar for that report.
All right, we have much more news to come here on Morning News Now, including later this hour, informative or invasive controversy right now ensnaring Instagram's latest rollout. Why lawmakers want Meta to roll back its new Instagram map feature.
Up first, though, developing news out of the Middle East. 5 journalists killed in an Israeli strike on Gaza overnight. The latest after the break. Stay with us. We are back with the latest on the war in Gaza. Al Jazeera says 5 of its journalists were killed in a targeted Israeli strike on Gaza City overnight. The IDF claims one of the victims was a Hamas leader posing as a journalist, which both he and his employer had previously denied. This comes as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu shows no signs of backing down from his plans to take over Gaza City, despite international backlash over the humanitarian situation there. NBC News correspondent Molly Hunter has more.
In the face of growing international outrage, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu doubling down.
We have about 70 to 75% of Gaza under Israeli control, military control. But we have 2 remaining strongholds, Gaza City and the central camps in the Muasi.
In a press conference, the Israeli leader was clear. He wants to control the entire Gaza Strip, and soon.
We're talking in terms of fairly short timetable because we want to bring the war to an end.
But that's not how the vast majority of UN member states see it.
Expanding military operations will do nothing to bring an end to this conflict.
In a rare Sunday emergency session, country,
a plan of horror and destruction.
After country,
they act with brutality, cruelty,
called on Israel's restraint, except the United States, further isolated in its support for Israel.
The United States supports Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas's terrorism. And ultimately, Israel has a right to decide what is necessary for its security.
But nearly 6,000 miles away in Gaza, the 100th child died of starvation, according to the health ministry. International organizations say Israel is still not allowing in enough aid. This father says, "We're exhausted. I'm going out to get food for my children, and I swear I don't even have a bite for them to eat."
And after that emergency UN Security Council session, Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump spoke on the phone, the Israeli Prime Minister thanking President Trump for his, quote, steadfast support.
Meantime, the urgency on the ground apparent. Molly, thank you. Some frightening moments to tell you about now aboard one of the biggest cruise ships in the entire world after part of a water slide that hangs over the top deck just shattered. One man was injured but is now in stable condition, and an investigation is now underway. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra has all the details.
A shocking scene aboard the Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas.
Does the person fall out?
Video captured by passengers showing water gushing from a broken water slide after a portion of it shattered, injuring an adult man.
No more slide! Stop the slide!
Royal Caribbean saying in a statement, "Our team provided medical care to an adult guest when acrylic glass broke off a water slide as the guest passed through the slide. The guest is being treated for his injuries." The incident just the latest in a string of troubles for the icon of the seas, Royal Caribbean's record-breaking 1,200-foot-long ship that features 20 decks and can hold over 5,600 guests. Late last month, police say a crew member stabbed a fellow employee multiple times before jumping overboard in the Bahamas.
And we were just like eating our dinner. We looked out the window and there was like a boat going to rescue the person.
He was found unresponsive and died on the scene. Royal Caribbean saying at the time the attack stemmed from a personal dispute between the two crew members, and the female stabbing victim was stable. Also last month on the Icon, video on social media captured a guest flipping over the side of the ship's infinity pool into the pool's gutter. She was not injured, according to Royal Caribbean, but despite the recent incidents, cruises are generally considered safe. The Cruise Lines International Association finding that while capacity has increased, operational and overboard incidents are down in recent years. Some reassuring news for travelers ready to set sail amidst a sea of shocking headlines.
And our thanks to Marissa Parra for that report. The injured passenger from that broken slide is again in stable condition. Royal Caribbean says the water slide, which is one of 6 on board, will remain closed pending its investigation.
All right, coming up, a tiny 2-ounce drink causing a lot of concern.
Yeah, this is an herbal supplement meant to boost your mood and your energy, but Savannah, doctors say it's not safe. What you should know next on Morning News Now.
We are back with a warning about a supplement sold nationwide. It is called Feel Free. The 2-ounce tonic is marketed as a mood and energy booster made with kava root and kratom, which is known to have opioid-like effects. Well, the maker denies reports of severe addiction, but social media users are raising concerns. NBC News correspondent Maya Eaglin has more.
Social media warnings going viral online about this little blue bottle that packs a big punch.
This is a warning, specifically for parents, but I guess really for anybody.
This 2-ounce herbal tonic called Feel Free is sold at gas stations and convenience stores. It's advertised as a mood and energy booster made with plant-based kava root and kratom.
What does kratom do to your body?
The Food and Drug Administration has actually designated that kratom specifically acts as an opioid.
NBC News reached out to Botanic Tonics, the maker of Feel Free, for a response to claims that their product is addicting. They sent us a statement that reads in part, Botanic Tonics has sold over 129.7 million servings of Feel Free. We've received fewer than 1,000 consumer adverse event complaints total across all categories, with 0 complaints involving severe addiction.
Johnny, no.
John shared his experience with Feel Free to millions of viewers on TikTok. He asked us not to use his last name out of privacy concerns.
I've been sober 8 years from heroin and meth. It was a feeling when I drank it that kind of brought me back to how I was.
John says he spent 12 days in the ICU dealing with withdrawal.
I was taking a lot, like 10 to 12 a day.
Kratom has been banned in 5 states, and although it is not federally regulated, the FDA and DEA have issued warnings against it. Chronic use has been associated with insomnia, seizure, and even liver damage.
Really do research before you put something in your body.
A good reminder as advocates urge for more regulations and safeguards in this space. Maya Eaglin, NBC News.
Let's bring in NBC News medical contributor Dr. Natalie Azar for more on this. Dr. Azar, good morning. So the FDA officially declared kratom as an opioid back in 2018, so it's been a little while now. What do people need to know about the substance and how it's used in these tonics?
Yeah, so there's a lot of important information here, and I just, should point out that there are a lot of individuals who have, over the last 5 to 10 years, have turned to kratom as an alternative for treating their chronic pain instead of an opioid. But as Dr. Patel said in the piece, kratom does actually bind to the same opioid receptors as, let's say, heroin does. So it exerts a lot of the same types of effects. At lower doses, it can actually act as a stimulant, but at higher doses, it actually can relieve pain because it acts like an opioid and cause sedative side effects. The thing is that people are self-treating. They're self-treating anxiety, depression, as well well as opioid use disorder and withdrawal. And without FDA regulations in place, it's kind of a little bit like the Wild West, Savannah, in terms of, safety and, product manufacturing and everything like that. People just don't know exactly what they're getting when they're taking this over the counter at a gas station.
Dr. Azar, to ask the question that any parent would want to know, why is the FDA not more comprehensively regulating kratom? And then what are the potential health risks of continuous use?
Yeah, this is where it gets really sticky, Sam. FDA Commissioner Marty Makary just said a couple of weeks ago that he would be okay to, endorse kratom as what we call a Schedule I drug. But the issue with that is, and basically what that means is that it is something that has abuse potential, but maybe no medical use. The problem with that is then it's no longer going to be studied. And that's important because it could very well have a place in an arsenal to treat individuals with chronic pain by a pain specialist, someone who really is well versed in what this is. In terms of side effects, it can range anything from GI side effects to hallucinations and seizures, all the way up to liver damage. And again, the problem is the fact that what would even be a bare minimum would be to have it regulated at least as a supplement. At this point, it's not even regulated as such, and that's where people can get into trouble because the synthetic versions of kratom that are on the market, not necessarily what's in this tonic, which is technically just plant-based kratom. The synthetic versions have a lot higher concentrations of the active substance that can be quite serious if taken in excess amounts.
And it is just pretty crazy that it's like it could be just like a step away from Schedule I drug being illegal off the market versus right now anybody can walk in with no regulation and get this. Would you recommend people just avoid this altogether?
It's one of those things, again, Savannah, is that I think there is a population for whom it has been effective. I mean, you will hear those anecdotes. And the problem is that it hasn't been well studied. And that's where we get a little bit nervous about making a blanket recommendation for someone to try this. Where are they purchasing? What's the right dose? What can they expect? What are the drug interactions? We don't have the answers to all of those questions. So I think at this point, it's not something that most of us would recommend to our patients unless that particular practitioner has a lot of experience and knowledge about the substance.
Dr. Azar, last month, the FDA recommended that the Justice Department classify a chemical compound called 7-OH as an illicit substance due to its potency. It's a compound that occurs naturally in kratom. And by the way, as you just outlined, there are two different types of kratom, synthetic version, plant-based version. What is the difference between the two and their respective effects?
That's right. And so the 7-OH is the compound in kratom that is what is simulating the opioid effect. There's another compound in kratom that is actually causing the stimulant effect, again, at lower doses. And what's happening is that the 7-OH is being synthetically manufactured, again, at much, much higher doses. That's where you get into the danger category of potential use and abuse. And there have absolutely been cases where people have become addicted to this, especially if they've had a prior history of addiction. And again, the concern about labeling it as a Schedule I narcotic is that all bets are off the table. It's no longer going to be studied, and that's very, very dangerous because people will still try to get it. They're going to get it on the internet. They'll get it internationally where there's just no regulation at all. So I don't think that that's the right thing to do. I think the right thing to do is have it regulated at least as a supplement so that it can be properly studied.
Dr. Azar, important stuff there.
Yeah,
really good
definitely.
reminder for parents to have this conversation with their kids and teens. Thanks, Dr. Azar.
Yeah.
Coming up next, cracking down. The Postal Service is fighting back against unregulated vapes.
When we come back, how the agency is working to stop shipments. That's next on Morning News Now.
And we are back now with a topic a lot of folks are discussing right now, this new Instagram feature that is drawing harsh criticism in some corners. Last week, the Meta-owned platform rolling out a location sharing map where users can view one another's live locations.
Yeah, it prompted swift backlash with critics saying the map is a risk to privacy and safety. And now lawmakers are getting involved. In a letter obtained exclusively by NBC News, Two senators called on Instagram to, quote, immediately abandon the feature.
Joining us now to break down this new feature and the reaction to it online is NBC News technology contributor Joanna Stern. Joanna, great to see you. You know, there's obviously so much conversation around this. In that letter Savannah just mentioned, Tennessee's Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn and Connecticut's Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal both accusing Meta of not doing enough to protect children online. They say that the feature can potentially expose kids to predators. Walk us through, how does this map work and why so many people are upset about it this morning?
Yeah, and what's really interesting here is that Snapchat, which is obviously very popular with teens and younger users, has had a very similar feature for a really long time. And it works pretty similarly, but let me tell you how the Instagram one works. Basically, if you go into your direct messages right now on Instagram, at the top there, you'll see a map feature. And you can select that. And what you'll be able to see is where your friends or the friends that have opted in to share their location appear in the world on a map. Here is the important thing to know here. Your location is not automatically being shared. You have to opt into this. So when you select that map, it's going to ask you, do you want to share your location? Do you want to share it with just friends? Lots of different options. And obviously the backlash here is that this makes it a lot easier for people to tell where you are. But again, you have to opt into this. You have to choose to share that location.
Joanna, Instagram says, as you're pointing out here, that it's voluntary. You're opting into it. It remains off until a user turns it on. Some people are, though, saying that they unexpectedly saw themselves on the map. You pointed out Snapchat. I remember that. I remember turning off my location services in Snapchat, but then feeling like, did I do it right? Like, what do we think went on there? Is there some type of glitch, or what do you think that meant?
No, and this is just kind of dumb on Meta's part. I mean, what they did here is that if you've ever shared a story or a post and tagged that location, right? You're at NBC Studios and you take a selfie there and you tag it NBC Studios, and you're not sharing it on a map. You're not sharing your live location, really. It's putting that picture on the map. So if I were to zoom into the map in Midtown Manhattan, I might see your selfie there, even though you didn't use the map feature. And so they're sort of overlapping this location feature, which is very confusing to many, but they didn't actually opt into the map feature.
Why is this version then considered so much more concerning or nefarious than the Snap version of it? And also, to take this a step further, the head of Instagram said the company was going to make improvements to the feature this week. So what else are they saying about the backlash they're receiving?
Well, one, I think this is different just for the fact that this is Instagram. How many times over the last number of years has there been scrutiny, and rightfully so, about how teens and younger users are using Instagram? And so here, this makes it easier to share your location. It could make it more enticing to share your location, not only with your friends, but who might you come into contact on Instagram. So there's real fear there on the sense of the representatives who are just saying, why add this at all, right? This is already an issue. This app is an issue. To address what's happening on the Instagram side with Adam Asori, who's the head of the app, I think what they're seeing there is that there's confusion. There's a lot of confusion. People thought they were automatically sharing their location, which is a problem. But then too, like I mentioned, just that random post you put on your stories and just tagged the location, whether you were at a baseball game or at a movie theater, is showing up on the map. And I think that is very confusing to people, and I assume they'll make tweaks there to make it clearer.
Joanna, what do you think is the answer to why do this now? And do you think there's any chance that the feature gets removed?
I think they'll probably lessen the feature, maybe not market it, but I don't think they'll remove it. I think that the reason they do this is that they've long been trying to compete with Snap. This is still a really popular feature in the Snap app. They want more engagement in the app. All of this is always leads back to engagement, more time spent in the app, more doing things, whether it's direct messaging or sharing or videos. Now maps.
Yeah.
There you go.
The opting in is such an important part.
Exactly. Joanna Stern, who's very kindly joining us while she is working on a book herself right now. Joanna, always great to see you. Thanks for being with us.
See you on the map.
All right, nice. Well played, by the way. Yeah. Let's take a look at what's making news right now a little bit farther to our south on the map of Wall Street. The U.S. Postal Service, that was a horrible segue, by the way, is reportedly, thank you for humoring me, is reportedly smoking out illicit vape shipments.
CNBC's Silvana Henao has that in other money news. Hey, Silvana, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning to you. Yeah, well, the U.S. Postal Service is cracking down on shipments of unregulated vapes. It's a move that could be a big boost for sales of big tobacco. Now, Reuters reports the agency wrote a letter to Demand Vape, that's a New York-based distributor, now blocking it from using its services after New York City authorities alleged the company shipped vapes that didn't have FDA approval and violated a local flavor ban. And the move stands to benefit companies like Altria, which has fought against unregulated vapes, mostly from China. Meanwhile, Tesla is looking to bring its power business to the UK. So the company formally submitting a request for an electricity license with the government's energy regulator. Now, if approved, this could pave the way for Tesla to compete with the big companies that dominate the UK market and help offset a decline in revenue from sales of electric vehicles. Aside from making EVs, Tesla also develops solar power systems and battery energy storage products. And more Americans are eating at home to save money as they worry about high prices. So Dine Brands, that's the parent company of IHOP and Applebee's. We've got Sweetgreen, Wendy's, Denny's, and Chipotle all warning consumers cutting back on spending is hurting sales. And data from research firm Circana shows that consumers ate 1 billion fewer meals at restaurants in the first quarter this year. McDonald's CEO saying visits from lower income customers fell by double digits this past quarter, guys.
All right. Silvana, thank you.
Thank you, Silvana. Now to the big business of high school football and an inside look at a new multi-million-dollar stadium fit for the pros, but built for students. NBC News correspondent George Solis has that story.
A fortress of brick and steel, Buford, Georgia's state-of-the-art high school football stadium shines like a new penny and costs a pretty one, too. A whopping $62 million. Making it the most expensive high school football venue in the state.
That price tag includes this massive 44 by 82 foot double-sided digital scoreboard, something seldom seen even at pro and college level stadiums.
There's also a 2-story field house, seating for 10,000, and 15 executive suites. The city manager says it's paid for with their general and enterprise funds. The deal, the city owns it, the high school leases it, and in the off-season, it'll be used for other big events.
People look at this and they say, $62 million is a pretty big price tag. Is that worth it?
It is. Tony Wolf is Buford's director of athletic facilities. He says investment here has been in both athletics and academics. The student body has grown from a few hundred in the 90s to about 2,000 today. And it's Buford's $85 million high school, paid for with a special sales tax.
A lot of people make that assumption that, well, if you're building this, your teachers are probably starving. Nobody across the street has experienced anything less because of the building of this stadium.
The stadium also reflective of the state of play of high school football. Construction for Legacy Stadium in Katy, Texas cost around $72 million. At Allen, Texas's Eagles Stadium, their football palace seats about 18,000. Buford's powerhouse program, considered one of the best in the country. They've won 13 state championships since 2000, most recently under coach Brian Appling.
Why is this stadium worth the price tag?
Just because of the people. I mean, the people in this community, they deserve something special like this.
Fans say their team runs in a league all its own.
Isn't it something else? I tell you what, it rivals just about any college field I've been at.
Crystal and German Acevedo even moving to Buford to give their son a chance to compete and learn among the best.
Sometimes it's just football to some people it's life.
A part of life filled with priceless possibilities under Friday Night Lights. George Solis, NBC News, Buford, Georgia.
That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
Stay with us, so the news continues right now. Good morning. We're kicking off a new week. Thanks for starting your Monday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
And I'm Sam Brock. Joe on assignment today. Right now on Morning News Now, summer stunner. The curtain opens on a new work week with yet another batch of severe weather from Mother Nature. Out of control wildfires burning hundreds of thousands of acres of land. That's out west, forcing urgent evacuations in some states. Meantime, in the Midwest and down south, dangerous flash floods swallowing up parts of Wisconsin and Florida. The severe weather whiplash coming as a blanket of scorching heat covers nearly 30 million Americans. Angie Lastman is watching it all for us. Also this morning, one-on-one, President Trump set to sit down face-to-face with Russia's Vladimir Putin on American soil later this week. The Alaska Summit, as it's being called, centered on bringing a peaceful end to the years-long conflict in Ukraine, a cornerstone promise of Mr. Trump's second campaign. But where will Ukraine's President Zelensky fit into this critical conversation? We're going to bring you the very latest. Plus, one storied slice of Southern comfort is getting a 2025 reboot for a newer generation, but is Cracker Barrel's modern new look leaving nostalgic diners hungry for the past? And later in the hour, it's a social sensation that's giving a whole new meaning to the phrase sliding into your DMs, the software staple helping hard-eyed New Yorkers find their perfect match.
This is hilarious.
I would just say I saw that on my feeds and was like, someone's got to do a story about that.
It's
Hallie
so true.
Jackson,
yeah.
bringing it home.
There we go. It's a spoiler alert, a PowerPoint.
It was awesome.
For yourself.
We start this morning right now, though, not with dating, but with severe weather that is impacting the country from coast to coast. 28 million people right now under a heat advisory, Savannah, as temperatures in several areas are breaking the triple-digit mark. And places like Buffalo and Tampa could see record highs of temperatures being smashed. Meantime, in Colorado, one of the largest wildfires in the state's history, exploded to roughly 120,000 acres over the weekend, forcing evacuations in 2 different counties.
And Wisconsin is bracing for even more rain after it was hit with major flooding over the weekend. Milwaukee got nearly a foot of rain in less than 24 hours Saturday night, trapping people in their cars and flooding homes. Maggie Vespa is there for us right now with the very latest. Hey, Maggie, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. It was like something out of a movie this weekend here in Wisconsin. More than a foot of rain, actually, when you look at the whole 24-hour span, just coming in hard, coming in fast. Rivers like the Fox River behind me, look at this, swelling so quickly. This one's still up over the banks of that pedestrian walkway. Like this caution tape, it's here for a reason. And then look over here, you can see how high it is, how fast it's still moving. The floodwaters just surged into neighborhoods, flooding homes, submerging cars. This is other wild weather, kicks up coast to coast.
This morning, severe summer weather wreaking havoc nationwide. Overnight, parts of the Midwest getting hammered by more rain after sweeping flash floods swallowed parts of Wisconsin this weekend. Homes and cars submerged. This man stranded on top of his car. Water rescues stacking up.
We pulled dozens of people out of cars and off of cars trapped in the middle of floodwaters.
The Wisconsin State Fair shut down Saturday. Fairgoers forced to wade through flooded parking lots after parts of the state were soaked with a potential record 14 inches of rain in 24 hours. Residents now realizing the cleanup could take weeks. Jean Krajewski's home uninhabitable after raging floodwaters tore out part of the foundation, leaving her basement completely underwater and visible from the yard.
Coming back and seeing this, you thought what?
Devastation. Well, when we pulled up, my husband was in tears because it's his childhood home.
And overnight, the west coast of Florida hit by multiple rounds of flash flooding, some areas seeing up to 8 inches. Meanwhile, powerful winds kicking up across the country.
Yep, see? Oh my God.
A reported water spout sending beach umbrellas flying in Myrtle Beach, while in Nebraska, winds tearing the roof off of this prison. Officials say no one was hurt. Severe storms throwing a major wrench into summer air travel, too, with more than 1,000 flights delayed and 71 canceled out of Denver Airport Sunday. This as wildfires rage across the West. In Colorado, the skies thick with smoke, scorching heat fueling flames in multiple states.
Yeah, a lot to watch. Back out here live, researchers say there is a clear link between man-made climate change and a lot of these severe weather events, especially those wildfires and the floods. And specific to Wisconsin, we could see a bit more rain in the forecast today, but the good news is those flood alerts are expected to expire in the next few hours before people here really, guys, start to dry out. Send it back to you.
All right, Maggie Vespa, thank you very much.
See the water rushing behind her. We've got more now on the severe conditions with your Morning News Now weather.
Yeah, Angela Osmond's here in studio with us. With that, Andrew, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning to you. Yes, we've still got some more rain in the forecast. We're going to get to that. But let's start with the heat because that'll get your attention, especially if you live out west. We've got 28 million people under these heat alerts, a few of those across parts of northern New England and the south. But again, most of them stretching from the Pacific Northwest down to the Southwest, where temperatures will be at least above 90 degrees, and in some spots close to 100 degrees and over 100 degrees. Phoenix is one of those locations with 110. Across the Great Lakes in the Northeast, it's 90s, not just today, but tomorrow too. There's not much change in that pattern. We're still going to see temperatures well above normal across the Great Lakes to the Northeast and up and down the West Coast. So 90s and triple digits again for our friends there. As we look to late week, Wednesday basically to Friday, more of the same. Temperatures above normal. We're into the 90s, feeling very summer-like in New York City as we round out our work week. Kansas City ends up at 90 degrees by Friday. We've got above 90-degree temperatures for Little Rock, Nashville, and Raleigh here as we get through this work week. Now, we've also got those fires still burning across parts of Canada and the West, so the air quality is going to be an issue if you have any respiratory issues and you live in Minnesota or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan or for Colorado. We're going to see those, again, be an issue. As far as the rain is concerned, it's mostly focused across parts of the plains today, but we'll see parts of the Midwest get additional rainfall. It's not going to be quite as impressive as it was over the weekend, but still additional rainfall nonetheless. We've got some of those thunderstorms already ramping up across Kansas, and additional rounds of rain are expected across the plains through the day today. So we'll watch for the potential for some flooding, not just today, but tomorrow too, as we kind of see some of that rain lingering across the region. And of course, as if that isn't enough, we've got to talk about the tropics. I heard a sigh from Sam Brock just now. Oh, yeah. There's a tropical disturbance. Yeah, I know. There's a tropical disturbance that is sitting off the coast of Africa, guys, that we're going to watch in the coming days. Has a good chance of developing probably a depression, tropical storm here in the short term.
Yeah, it's coming for sure. Thank you, Angie.
We'll watch it.
We'll season soon. Thanks, Angie. You got it. Well, it could be a consequential week ahead in the long war between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday in Alaska for a high-stakes summit focusing on ending the conflict. Few details are known about the meeting so far, but it will mark Putin's first visit to the U.S. in a decade. NBC News senior White House correspondent Garrett Haake joins us with the latest on this. Garrett, good morning.
Hey, Savannah, good morning to you. And look, President Trump believes himself to be a master deal maker. He has kept careful account these last 8 months of the conflicts around the world that he's helped bring to a close. But come Friday, he will be across the table from a Russian president that much of the world views as a war criminal. And now the world will be watching to see if Trump can persuade Vladimir Putin to pause or stop his bloody 3-year invasion of Ukraine. The White House this morning preparing for a high-stakes presidential summit in the latest attempt to broker a ceasefire in the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine.
We're going to have a meeting with Russia.
President Trump announcing he accepted an invitation to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The leaders later announcing the summit would take place Friday in Alaska. Mr. Trump suggesting Ukraine will have to give up land for peace.
There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
Over the weekend, Vice President J.D. Vance traveling to London to huddle with Ukraine's European allies to discuss Ukraine's peace proposals, even as Russia continued its assault on Ukrainian cities. A top Trump ally sharing some of the president's thinking ahead of the meeting.
The goal for me, and I think President Trump, is to end it forever. You'll have some land swaps, but only after you have security guarantees to Ukraine to prevent Russia from doing this again. You need to tell Putin what happens if he does it a third time.
But Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, who sources say the White House is considering inviting to the summit, rejecting the idea of ceding any territory to Russia. And yesterday, Zelensky responding to, he says, more attacks from Russia and saying Russia's intention is to deceive America. The summit will cap off President Trump's months-long evolution on the war. He began his second term with a promise to end the war on his first day in office. The next month, he had an Oval Office shouting match with Zelensky.
You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards.
But as the war dragged on and the casualties mounted, President Trump publicly lost patience with Putin, threatening additional sanctions and tariffs on Russia's trading partners.
We get a lot of bull thrown at us by Putin, for you want to know the truth. He's very nice all the time, but it turns out to be meaningless.
All of it leading to a dramatic diplomatic showdown on the last frontier. And just this morning, President Zelensky posting on social media accusing Russia of dragging out the war and insisting that the Kremlin not receive any rewards or benefits. Savannah, the concerns from the Ukrainian leader here are quite apparent, that President Trump might be willing to give up more than the Ukrainians are just to reach some kind of agreement with Russia.
All right, Garrett, thank you very much.
Meantime, there are new details emerging this morning in that deadly shooting near the CDC in Atlanta. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar joining us now from Atlanta with the latest on the investigation. Priya, good morning.
Good morning, Sam. Current and former CDC employees and their allies are on edge following Friday evening's shooting that left both the suspected gunman and a responding police officer dead. Now, the search for answers continues.
This morning, a community in mourning after the fatal shooting of DeKalb County police officer David Rose.
We'll run an active shooter response.
The 33-year-old killed in the line of duty, responding to a gunman that opened fire in Atlanta on Friday afternoon near the campuses of both the CDC and Emory University.
This officer responded to the call as he was trained to do. And during that incident, he received gunfire and he lost his life in this incident. He was committed to serving the community.
Rose was a father of 2 children with a third on the way and had recently graduated from the police academy in March. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation identifying 30-year-old Patrick Joseph White as the suspected shooter. A neighbor who says she knew White well but didn't want to be identified, telling NBC News White had expressed anti-vaccine sentiments to her on multiple occasions and that he told her he believed the COVID vaccine made him sick. Other neighbors in disbelief.
I didn't think that it would be someone down the street.
It's very unnerving.
Officials say police heard gunfire inside a CVS pharmacy and that several rounds went into the CDC nearby. Authorities later finding White on the 2nd floor of the CVS building with a gunshot wound. It's unclear if it was self-inflicted or from police. He died at the scene and authorities still don't have a motive for the shooting. Abby Ty was fired from the CDC in February. She says the shooting didn't surprise her.
Among us folks that work at CDC or have connections to CDC, something like this is always in the back of our mind.
And over the weekend, the CDC director wrote an email to staff telling them to work remotely today so they could conduct a security assessment here before everyone returns to the office. Sam?
All right, good to hear that at least. Thank you, Priya.
Well, now to the Middle East, where overnight an Israeli strike on Gaza City killed 5 Al Jazeera journalists, the network said. Israel Defense Forces claim one of the victims was a Hamas leader posing as a journalist, which both he and his employer had previously denied. The Al Jazeera media network said in a statement that the killings were a, quote, targeted assassination. Well, this attack comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is defending his plan to seize control of Gaza amid growing global condemnation. In a rare press conference with foreign media on Sunday, Netanyahu said he had, quote, no choice but to finish the job of defeating Hamas. NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us from Tel Aviv with the latest here. Matt, good morning. So first, let's start on this Israeli airstrike that killed those 5 Al Jazeera journalists. What are we learning about the victims, and what's the response been like so far?
Yeah, well, it sounds as though, according to authorities there, that it was 8 people who were killed, 5 of them journalists for Al Jazeera, one of whom the Israelis said was basically a terrorist ringleader, that he was a guy who led a group of Hamas operatives. This is something that we've been seeing on the regular basis. More than 230 journalists have been killed by the Israelis ever since those October 7, 2023 attacks. Some of them, the Israelis have said that they are targeting them specifically. Others have been, it sounds like, killed accidentally in other strikes. The Israelis have particularly been hitting several journalists for Al Jazeera. It sounds as more than a dozen have been killed so far. And in many of these cases, they've been coming out, the Israelis, and saying that these people are not real reporters, that they are, in fact, operatives for Hamas and other terror groups in the Gaza Strip. As you heard, Al Jazeera strenuously denied and has repeatedly denied for the past several months that its journalists are working for Hamas.
Matt, Prime Minister Netanyahu spoke with President Trump yesterday about his plans to take over Gaza City. International condemnation, Savannah just mentioned, as a result of that. What more do we know about their conversation? Really, the pushback that Netanyahu has received from allies to the families of hostages?
Yeah, well, it sounds as though on that conversation, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thanked President Trump for his continuing support. The U.S. has been an outlier and remains an outlier, even more so, in their stand in favor of the Israelis, even though we saw just a couple of weeks ago President Trump disagreeing publicly and saying that there is actual famine in the Gaza Strip, disagreeing with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. We also heard the United States representative in the United Nations defending Israel's expanding attacks in the Gaza Strip in front of an emergency United Nations Security Council meeting yesterday. Now, all of this comes as we're hearing more and more louder criticism, not just from here in the streets of Israel, protests around the world, diplomats in the United Nations harshly criticizing these Israeli plans that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced on Friday. And we're also hearing here in Israel, thousands in the streets demanding some sort of ceasefire deal that would free those remaining hostages. And we've heard Benjamin Netanyahu, as you said he has no choice but to expand his fight in Gaza and dismantle Hamas completely.
Matt, I also want to ask you about the death toll from malnutrition within Gaza. It continues to rise, but in that press conference we've been discussing yesterday, Netanyahu, he said that the situation is being exaggerated. What is the current situation on the ground?
Yeah, it's interesting because he made that comment in Hebrew. He didn't make that comment in English so much. So now we're hearing that we passed the number 100 children have died from malnutrition. This is well more than half of those who have died from malnutrition total ever since those October 7th attacks in 2023. Now, it's been more than 2 weeks since the Israelis started allowing in airdrops of food, and we've seen airdrops coming in from the UAE, from Jordan, and several European countries now who are airdropping this food. But Palestinians say that the food that's coming in is inadequate. It doesn't include enough protein, including some of the food that's been supplied by independent organizations who have been delegated for the task by the Israelis. We've also seen how dangerous and inefficient it is to airdrop food. We've been hearing reports of deaths of people who have been crushed by this airdropping food. These big pallets carrying so much food are crushing people as they're landing on the ground. So this is both an inefficient and dangerous way to distribute food, and that's why we're hearing from the international aid community more calls again and again from Israel to allow a flood of aid into the Gaza Strip to meet the needs of more than 2 million people who have been suffering from an almost complete blockade for several months.
Yeah. Matt, thank you so much. Appreciate that report.
Well, for more on this, let's bring in Shibli Talami. He's the Anwar Sadat Professor for Peace and Development at the University of Maryland and with the Center for Middle East Policy at the Brookings Institute. Professor, good morning. Thanks very much for being with us. So I want to start with the news about those 5 journalists. What was your initial reaction to this and your current assessment of Israel's new offensive in the enclave?
It's really difficult, but not surprising in the sense that from the outset in October 2023, Israel has not allowed international journalists to come in to cover what's really happening on the ground. Obviously, we get a lot of reporting from Palestinian journalists. We get a lot of reporting from the medical staff, the international community, the UN, people who provide aid on the ground. Those are the ones who've been giving the picture. And since the beginning, since October 2023, over 230 journalists have been killed already. This is the largest number of journalists killed in any conflict in the 21st century. So I think this is, the control of the images that are coming out, obviously, is something that matters a lot to the Israelis, given that they're not allowing anybody in. It's heartbreaking in part also because I do watch occasionally, and I know some of those journalists. I hear the reporting. So it is obviously a shocking but not surprising.
Just a stunning, though, statistic, 200-plus journalist deaths. Professor, we continue to hear that Israel is facing international backlash over this new offensive and the humanitarian crisis in Gaza that Matt was just describing. One concrete way the backlash has been expressed is by demands for recognizing Palestine as a state. Several Western governments, including most recently Australia, said that they plan to do so. Do you think that's an effective tactic or approach here to make a peace deal more likely, or would it be less likely?
Well, it could help, but it has risks. And let me just say, I recently wrote an article for Foreign Affairs on this subject of the promise of the peril of recognizing Palestine. It does more good than bad in the sense that it registers a determination by the international community not to accept Israeli control over Gaza. It could help preempt ethnic cleansing, something that some Israeli ministers are advocating. And it could anchor the conversation in international law instead of the biblical narrative that some people are putting forth about who owns what land. So in that sense, it's very important. Keep in mind that there are already about 150 countries around the world who recognize a state of Palestine. The move that we are seeing is obviously important because it's principally European countries and Western countries like Australia and Canada who are typically seen to be Israel supporters. And in France, the UK, already Spain had recognized Israel. So that move, particularly from Western Europe, could have an impact. The problem is that unless you really essentially hold Israel accountable for implementing it, it could just be, a smokescreen of appeasing the public. Remember, the public internationally is very, very critical of Israel. In fact, much of the world sees what's happening in Gaza already as genocide, including nearly half of Americans, according to a poll released last week. Certainly, human rights organizations, Western and Israeli, agree with that. So you have a lot of anger, and governments have been way behind their publics, like in the U.S. government, where our government is doing one thing, the public is in another place. So it could be just a smokescreen, and unless it's anchored in something more than just the pronouncement, it could be a waste of an opportunity.
All right, Shibli Talami, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Well, there is more to come on this Monday edition of Morning News Now.
Yeah, including the Silicon Valley community going toe-to-toe with billionaire Mark Zuckerberg over his lucrative real estate reach that some in the tech mecca say goes too far.
But first, after the break, a dramatic high-speed pursuit bringing some chaotic moments to folks in L.A. overnight. More on the frantic manhunt for the armed suspects still on the loose this morning. That's next. Stick with us. And welcome back. Overnight, a carjacking turning into a wild pursuit in Los Angeles. Armed suspects stealing multiple vehicles, including a tanker truck, before vanishing into the night. NBC News correspondent Camila Bernal joining us with the latest from Los Angeles. Camila, this sounds wild. Good morning.
Absolutely wild. Good morning, Sam. It's unbelievable and extremely dangerous. This chase started north of Los Angeles. The carjackers drove towards downtown LA and even went into some of the neighborhoods. Terrifying moments for innocent drivers, and a lot of this caught on camera. Overnight, a dramatic chase and suspects still on the loose.
This is now the California Highway Patrol that is in pursuit.
On a California freeway, police in pursuit of carjackers who they say took over a series of vehicles, including a semi-truck. Authorities say the chase began after law enforcement received a call of a carjacking at gunpoint.
This is believed to be carjacking suspects inside of this Ford F-150. They even shot at the rightful owner.
The suspects driving on the wrong side of the freeway.
Move out of the way, folks. Move out of the way. This guy is going the wrong way here on the on-ramp.
Making multiple attempts to take over other vehicles.
But you see the door opening. This is really scary, knowing that these guys are armed. They might try to carjack this person. Thankfully, that person had their door locked.
Eventually confronting this semi-truck.
And this guy has a gun. We don't know what's going to happen.
Forcing the driver out of the vehicle.
The driver just ran out. Oh my gosh. Now a stolen semi making its way northbound on the 5 freeway.
With authorities in pursuit, at some point, the suspects ditched the big rig and stole a pickup truck near downtown LA. Police eventually chasing them to an LA neighborhood. This morning, police continuing their search for the suspects after a terrifying chase.
And this is still an ongoing investigation as police look for the people responsible, not just of the carjacking, but also of putting so many others in danger. And as we know, the suspects have been ditching these vehicles as they go, but authorities are continuing to chase that last car that they stole, which was a black sedan. Sam?
So scary just to watch that video. Camila, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. All right, now let's get to the growing tension in Palo Alto, California. This is over Mark Zuckerberg's expanding real estate portfolio. So neighbors say the tech billionaire's growing multi-million-dollar compound is taking over the community. NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has more on the clash between the Meta CEO and his neighbors.
Well, hey there, there's that saying, a good fence makes a good neighbor. But in the case of Meta's Mark Zuckerberg, that fence has turned into much more than wanting a little privacy. According to a new report in the New York Times, the Facebook founder has taken over a massive swath of land in his Silicon Valley neighborhood, buying up multiple single-family homes, all to the dismay of some of his neighbors who say it's changing and disrupting their community.
This morning, one of the world's richest men, tech billionaire Mark Zuckerberg, at the center of a neighborhood drama. The Facebook founder allegedly piling up properties in Palo Alto, California, miles from Meta headquarters. A New York Times report finds Zuckerberg has bought at least 11 homes in the affluent Crescent Park area, spending more than $110 million to create a compound for his family. That includes multiple guest homes, a pool, pickleball court, and even a private school for 14 children that may violate the city code. The Times said it reviewed city and state documents and spoke to 9 neighbors, including 7 who asked to remain anonymous. Underneath it all sits 7,000 square feet of space that building permits call basements, but some neighbors refer to as a bunker. Zuckerberg has also built underground on other land he's been buying up in Hawaii, describing it like this.
I think that's just like a little shelter it's like a basement.
little shelter.
I do have an underground tunnel.
Do you really?
Yeah. People are saying I built this like bunker underground. It's like more of underground storage type situation.
Peter Balte was a member of the Palo Alto Architectural Review Board in 2016 when Zuckerberg asked for permission to demolish 4 homes.
They were rather odd designs. One had a large basement for some meeting rooms or some kind. It just wasn't residential in nature. We ultimately rejected the project.
But Zuckerberg revised his plans to avoid needing approval, according to The Times, a pattern residents say of finding loopholes. Since Zuckerberg moved to Crescent Park more than a decade ago, they also say the disruptions have been endless. Construction blocking roads and driveways, security surveillance even on public sidewalks, and noise from the couple's massive parties. A spokesperson for Zuckerberg and Chan telling The Times they value being members of the community and have taken a number of steps above and beyond any local requirements to avoid disruption in the neighborhood. But many residents are still frustrated, saying the compound has changed the tight-knit community.
Having a community where you see your neighbors, where you say hello to each other, that's something that's core to Palo Alto, and that's what's being pushed away at in Palo Alto today with this situation.
Now, as for what's next, one city council member who lives nearby told the New York Times that he's working on rewriting the local zoning rules, arguing it shouldn't allow one person to take over an entire neighborhood. Others are hoping the city cracks down on the private school. We should note, while some clearly don't love what Zuckerberg is doing, other neighbors have reportedly been eager to cash in on his plans, with the couple's spokesperson telling The Times that many have actually reached out to him, offering to sell their homes. So far, NBC News has not heard back ourselves from Meta and Zuckerberg.
Wow,
back to you.
Winners and losers in that. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it. Up next, a climate emergency threatening some of Europe's most picturesque peaks.
Yeah, when Morning News Now returns, we'll take you to the Alps in Europe where icy glaciers are melting with potentially catastrophic consequences. That is next. Stay with us.
And we are back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this morning, starting with the increasingly explosive fight in Texas over redistricting. NBC News politics reporter Megan Leibowitz has that and more. Good morning, Megan.
Hey, Sam, good morning. Let's start off in Texas, where the fight over redistricting is still in full swing. And if Governor Greg Abbott's comments this weekend are any indication, it could go on for a while. He said that the situation, quote, could literally last years. That's because once this special legislative session ends, he said he'll just keep calling more. Now, Governor Abbott also reiterated that if the Democratic legislators who left the state come back, they'll be arrested and taken to the Capitol. Next, let's head over to the IRS, where there's yet another leadership shakeup. President Trump removed IRS Commissioner Billy Long, who was just sworn into the job in June. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is temporarily taking on the role, keeping his secretary job too, while Long says he'll be President Trump's pick for ambassador to Iceland. Now, big picture here, Secretary Bessent will be the 6th person to lead the IRS since President Trump's inauguration. Now, finally, let's go to the Justice Department, which is investigating 2 major Trump critics. The investigation is into allegations of mortgage fraud against California Democratic Senator Adam Schiff and New York Attorney General Letitia James. Now, that's according to 2 administration officials. Let's just rewind for a second. President Trump himself has previously called for them to face prosecution, and both Schiff and James have denied any wrongdoing. And that's a look at what is making news in politics this morning. Sam?
All right, we're going to have to do a lot of rewinding just to keep up with all these storylines. Megan, thank you so much. We appreciate that. Well, there is growing concern in Europe this morning over the continent's shrinking glaciers, which are melting faster than any others across the globe. Scientists say it shows just how dire climate change can be to our planet. A visual reminder of that. And some of them warn this rapidly melting ice could lead to natural disasters that are more intense and more frequent. NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter gives us a first-hand look at the Swiss Alps.
As we hike towards the mighty Morteratsch Glacier high in the Swiss Alps.
So we can see the glacier now.
There it is.
Yeah.
Even in its relatively diminished state, it is extraordinary.
So I'm seeing a lot of falling rock danger signs.
Yeah, exactly. So here on the sides, we have this debris that was deposited by the glacier. And as it's retreated, this landscape becomes quite unstable. And so that's why you have rocks falling off the sides.
But looking up to that ledge,
yeah,
that was the former glacier line.
Exactly. So this kind of marks the margin of the glacier. So it's not just the length change, but it's also the thickness, right?
Woo! As we near 7,000 feet, the air gets thinner. We're on the heels of scientist Leo Hosley doing his PhD work at Morteratsch as we make the final scramble up.
Wow, the sound of that.
Yeah.
We hear it before we see it.
This is amazing.
Made it.
That's cold.
That's very cold. Yeah. It's a really apparent sign of climate change. The glacier retreat is going to affect the water availability, and in the end, it all flows into the seas, right, into the oceans, and there it's going to affect sea level rise, and that affects a huge amount of people.
European glaciers are melting faster than anywhere else on the planet. New research published in Nature Science Journal finds they've lost about 40% of their volume in the last 25 years, equivalent to about 3 Olympic swimming pools every second. Researchers here have been measuring the dramatic retreat for more than a century.
We've just walked the path of where the glacier used to be to get up here. This situation is dire, and we can see that. But there's also a lot of ice up above me, and there's a lot of beauty that's worth saving.
Across the border in Austria, glaciologist Andrea Fischer says it's too late to save Austria's glaciers in their current state.
We will lose 1/3 of the Austrian glaciers entirely during the next 5 years.
Fischer brought an NBC News team here to Stubai Glacier back in 2005.
There is no possibility to save glaciers without saving climate.
Protective blankets covered the slopes then, but today she calls them glacier band-aids. And as we're talking,
there's lots of debris coming down off this rock.
You can hear it right
face.
now.
Yeah.
Actually.
Back down in the valley, cleanup is underway after a massive landslide last month.
People say the Alps have always been risky. There's always been instability in major mountain ranges, which is true, but not like this.
Now the events are more often and stronger, and this is the result of climate change.
And in neighboring Switzerland, a glacial slide obliterated the village of Blatten.
The next 20 to 50 years will bring extreme changes for us people living in the mountains, for all peoples living on the whole globe. And we have to think about the consequences.
These type of events that
former pro snowboarder Johan Gom is also thinking about adaptation. He's created a 3D modeling tool currently in testing. It predicts when landslides or avalanches may happen, how far and wide they may travel, and specifically what kind of damage they may bring.
We still want to live in the mountain. We still want to go on these very beautiful hikes out there. It's really beautiful out there, so we want to make our mountain safe.
And back on Morteratsch, Hosley is remarkably still optimistic.
Yes, they're melting, yes, they're retreating, but they're still incredibly beautiful. They're still large, they're still big, there's still huge amounts of ice here. And so it's not like it's a completely lost cause. There's still something to save here, right?
Molly Hunter, NBC News on Morteratsch Glacier in Switzerland.
Thank you, Molly, for that report. Up next, it is a staple of down-home Southern road trips, like, biscuits, gravy, fried chicken, and okra. But are Cracker Barrel's new restaurant renovations leaving nostalgic diners with a bad taste in their mouths? Why would that be? We're going to dig into that next on Morning News Now. We're back now with a new look for one of America's most, I guess you could say, iconic Southern restaurants. Cracker Barrel is giving some locations a modern makeover, including brighter lighting, updated seating, fresher vibes. But the changes have some customers wondering if that classic country charm is being left behind in the process. NBC News correspondent Marissa Parra joining us now with more. Marissa, great to see you. Of course, the Southern charm of Cracker Barrel. Tell me it's still there.
It is still there, Sam, and I want to kind of set the scene for you here because I'm having the most Florida morning you can imagine. I've seen roosters crowing around me, iguanas crawling up palm trees. You know how it is. And this is, I'm telling you right now, this is as least country as it gets where I'm standing. But this is why people go into Cracker Barrel, right? For a little taste of that rustic country feel. But some subtle changes that the brand is making is kind of upsetting and stirring the gravy pot, if you will, for longtime fans.
For over 50 years, Cracker Barrel has been serving up a slice of rustic country to suburbia.
Home-style cooking brings family together.
Between the rocking chairs, the old-timey gift shop, and those biscuits and gravy, Southern comfort has always been on the menu.
Here at Cracker Barrel Old Country Store, we keep our routine so you can get out of yours.
But a new change to that nostalgic routine is stirring the pot.
Look around. Wow, look how bright it is.
A select number of stores undergoing a redesign for a more modern feel.
We got all new lighting, new seating, new tables and chairs.
This video is from a Tennessee location posted last August, just now going viral. While some are embracing the change,
the paint color is just so much lighter, and I think it's so much better.
Others argue the remodel chips away at that Southern charm.
But the inside remodel, Cracker Barrel for real, you're losing your feel.
While Cracker Barrel has said only about 30 of its 600-plus restaurants will get a full remodel, in a statement the chain says feedback from both guests and team members has been overwhelmingly positive, adding the strong performance of these locations affirms that we are moving in the right direction. In an interview last summer, Cracker Barrel's CEO telling CNBC the transformation is part of a multi-year brand refresh.
Our goal is to take what people love about Cracker Barrel and open the aperture a little bit so that more people love Cracker Barrel. So we want to appeal to all generations.
Cooking up a new look is all the rage. Denny's, Popeyes, Burger King, all getting modern makeovers. With sleek exteriors, brighter dining rooms, and high-tech features like these self-service kiosks in Burger King's newly remodeled Sizzle stores.
You don't want to eat somewhere where the carpet is from the 1980s. The look and feel of a restaurant, because the customers are spending money going there, is vital.
Across the country, restaurant chains have been struggling, with Hooters, TGI Fridays, and Red Lobster all filing for bankruptcy in the past year. A recent survey also found nearly 70% of consumers say they're eating at home more often.
We have all of our great decor here.
While Cracker Barrel tests a refreshed look, industry experts say it's a gamble catering to changing appetites without leaving a bad taste in the mouths of loyal customers.
I love to go somewhere where the food is good, but the atmosphere has to be good too, because I don't want to eat somewhere boring.
Now, Sam, of the 600-plus locations, Cracker Barrel has made it clear that there are hundreds among those that will not get the full makeover, if you will. This one behind me, we're in Deerfield Beach, just outside of Boca Raton. It has not seen that makeover, but they also did say, the brand says they are listening carefully to customer feedback. And I want to reassure you, I just got informed by your producer, this is a Necco and Charleston shoes. I made my way into the gift shop, so don't worry. The rocking chairs, the gift shop, they're not only still here, they are here to stay. That's the number one concern everyone had. They're still here.
I was deeply concerned. I will just say I 100% back in the day would get Charleston shoes from Cracker Barrel's. The iguanas, though, and the roosters, I feel like that's a particular South Florida twist. That's not all of the stores,
right?
Marissa?
Yeah.
Thank you, my friend.
No, not all the stores, just a particular Florida flavor, yeah.
A Florida flavor, indeed. Thank you so much for that, Marissa. Staying with business headlines now, and Siri is reportedly getting an AI makeover. CNBC's Silvana Henao has that and other Money Minute headlines for you. Good morning, Silvana.
Hey, Sam, good morning to you. Well, Apple is still planning to release an AI upgraded version of Siri next spring. Bloomberg says it will be enhanced by a new app intense feature, which can handle more complex tasks such as commenting on an Instagram post, adding an item to your shopping cart, or even editing a photo. Now, Apple is testing the tool with third-party apps, including Amazon, Facebook, Uber, WhatsApp, and YouTube. Meanwhile, computer science may not be a path to a good-paying job anymore. Recent data from the New York Fed finds new grads are facing unemployment rates of up to 7.5% more. That's more than double that of biology and art history majors. Now, that could partly be due to the rise of AI, which can do coding and other tasks typically given to junior employees. Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft have all cut jobs this year. And you've got mail no more. AOL is ditching dial-up service at the end of September. The company says the move follows a routine evaluation of its products. Now, dial-up was once the symbol of an internet connection, with AOL launching it back in 1991. A U.S. Census count in 2019 estimated 265,000 people were still using dial-up, Sam.
Silvana, I'm not going to lie. I remember using AOL dial-up. All the kids out there, they have no idea what I'm talking about, but that was a real thing.
I remember the whole thing. Hang up the phone.
I know, exactly. You know what? May it live on in our memories.
Right.
Thank you, Silvana. Yes. An 82-year-old man has built quite the friendship with a raccoon and its family. And while it's not recommended, he says it is giving him purpose. Reporter Sam Reed from our Providence, Rhode Island affiliate, WJAR, has their unique story.
A while back, his kids got him a security camera.
What it does, it monitors just this area out here with pets or people or whatever the action might be.
And I could tell you what it's been capturing for over a year, but it's something you have to see for yourself to believe.
So it's become a hobby with me, sort of, or a pastime. I've always loved animals.
Last spring, Dick was smoking a cigar outside.
This raccoon just came walking up to me, just strutted up, stood there, looked at me, didn't run, didn't do anything else. I just was mesmerized by her ability to get that close to me.
Then the next night, the critter came back, and every day that followed, he quickly became something like a raccoon whisperer.
I don't know whether she felt comfortable with me, but she came back with 5 babies after a month of bonding, let's say, with myself.
From there, a friendship was formed. The raccoon came daily until it was time for its deep sleep. Then, sure enough, this spring, one of the babies remembered their favorite humans. Nearly every night between 7 and 11, the 82-year-old waits patiently for her to arrive.
It's like when you had a teenage kid and they didn't come home by 11, and you're lying there, so what happened? Did they go to a party, or that's how ridiculous it gets. You know, I worry about the raccoon.
When his phone lets off an alert, he makes his way outside.
It's my therapy, I think.
Where the pair spend quality time together, though Dick understands feeding wildlife is not advised.
I wear a glove on my right hand, and I put the grapes or the marshmallows in it. And she gently takes the things out of. I don't even need to use the glove, but I'd rather be safe than sorry.
He always washes his hands and is on the lookout for signs or symptoms of sickness. Thus far, his furry friend is always friendly.
And after 2 or 3 weeks, then she got up in my lap. But I didn't want her to get any closer than that because, again, it's still an animal.
While he has no problem deciphering the two, the once-in-a-lifetime relationship with the raccoon is something he values and enjoys. And here, in his own natural habitat with the raccoon by his side, he says is a pretty great place to be.
But the most important thing is it just keeps me occupied. I enjoy doing it. It's as simple as that.
Oh, always a sweet time on Raccoon Drive. That was our Sam Reed reporting. Thank you so much. Well, coming up next, we are looking forward to some interesting developments here. This is a dating app, style app that's being pitched. You're talking about your friends and what makes them qualified candidates for the dating role. Definitely a bit of a twist on your standard dating experience in New York City. We'll tell you all about this latest craze coming up after this. And finally this hour, a new event is giving people the chance to pitch their single friends to potential dates, even putting together, yes, PowerPoint presentations with their best qualities. NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson has the full story.
Hey there, it's a fun one for you about an unexpected wingman in the search for love. PowerPoint, helping friends who are helping friends find a match.
At this crowded bar in New York City.
Hello, how are you guys doing tonight?
The game of love looks a little different.
Clap if you're single.
On this night, it's not about the chase. Instead, you need to make your case.
And I can think of no one who is a better best friend than Nick. Thank you so much.
The goal for wingmen and women to help their friends land a first date.
At 9 p.m., there is a bar seat for two.
It's called Pitch and Pair NYC, where presenters try to convince total strangers to take a chance on their single friends.
She puts the heart in mental health nonprofit.
It's not exactly romantic, using PowerPoint to create real-life dating profiles, but there is a catch. You've only got 5 minutes.
Why would you not be interested?
Founder Joe Teblum got the idea so he could put himself out there.
I wanted to create something that was a little more friendly to people that were shy and more introverted, and something that was more fun and creative.
In the hot seat, the pressure's on.
I cannot tell you the number of times he sent me pictures of him in a shirt and being like, which shirt? And it's 2 floral shirts. Come on, I have a job.
Her phone dies constantly.
He works in finance. He is not 6'5". He does not have a trust fund. I'm sorry, ladies.
That's me dancing with her, and that's proof that she has rhythm.
Behind every pitch, a desire to connect the old-fashioned way.
Dating apps aren't working, so why not?
I think people are just kind of getting fatigued with dating apps.
You're Nick, right?
A little laughter.
You seem like such a nice guy. Can you record this for me?
And also, she does want someone taller than her. She's 5'6". It's not that hard.
And yes, a little love, including, of course, the platonic kind, building friendships along with the fun.
If authenticity and passion weren't enough for you, let me list out the superficial reasons why you should date Ani.
I think the way we all want to meet someone is through a friend of a friend, and this is kind of that.
Oh, wait, clap for love and friendship.
And you know what? Clap for all kinds of love. How about that? Back to you.
Cheers to love and a good wingman and wingwoman. Hallie, thank you so much. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now. The news continues next.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.